Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to Let's Contribute to Flutter, presented by Flutter Vadodara. My name is Arpan Patel, and I'm going to welcome you all on the behalf of Flutter Vadodara team. Today, we have gathered for the 24-hour virtual event in which we'll get started with contributing to Flutter. So, without wasting a further ado, let's get started. So, this is the today's event schedule. First of all, we have the ceremony going on. Next up, we have the introduction to Git and GitHub workshop taken by Tadas. Next, we have contribution to the Flutter talk given by Pascal. And then we have the special announcement by the Flutter team. So stay tuned for that. And post the stream, the contribution starts, and you can join our Discord server where you get interacted for the contribution. So yeah, we are on the Discord, and if you want to join us on the Discord server, this is the link. We'll post the link in the live chat section as well. So make sure you join as well. So now we have Tedas here for his workshop Introduction to Git and GitHub. Tedas has been working with Flutter over 2 years now. He works as a senior software engineer developing embedded software for trucks during the day while he runs a coder YouTube channel and teach people about Flutter during night. So Tedas, I welcome you on the stage.
Hello,
Tedas.
everybody. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine as well. So let's get started then. I'll just remove my screen.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, your screen is visible?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So, hello, everybody. My name's Tadas, like he said, and I run the Amateur Coder YouTube channel. If you've seen that around, but basically, we're gonna go over Git and GitHub in this little live stream here. So I don't have many slides. The way I like to teach is I like to actually show how it works. So we're only going to have 4 little slides here to give you a little idea, and then we'll show you about how everything works. So let's get started. How do I next? There we go. So sometimes I've seen people get confused with the difference between GitHub and Git. So the main difference is Git is a version control system that lets you manage and keep track of your source code history. So Git is the actual part that's doing version controlling, while GitHub is a cloud-based hosting service that lets you manage your Git repositories. So Git has controls the actual versioning, controls your code, and like gets all the differences and stuff. And GitHub is just a service that facilitates it and helps to do all those things. So some of the terminology you will need to know for this: we have branch, stage, commit, pull request, merge, and fork. We'll go through each of these, and I'll tell you what they actually mean, like during the actual demonstration. But for now, I have this little chart here, and we'll go back and forth. So a branch is just kind of like a working copy for your code. It's like a folder where you can actually work on your things. So you have we have the main master branch where most of your like actual release code should be. And then you can create a development branch like this where you can work on stuff that won't be affecting the actual production code that's on the main master branch. Then you do all your work here. You can have multiple commits. A commit is basically saving things to your specific branch. So let's say you're working on your development branch. You may create a feature. You can commit that feature to your own branch, and now it's going to get tracked. And anybody will be able to, well, if you're using GitHub, your team will be able to see that what you've added and when you added it and stuff like that. So then here you can see there's multiple commits, and someone else creates another branch. So this way you can have multiple people working on the same software, and they can be working on features in the different parts of the code, but they'll be able to merge it in at the end, and you'll have multiple things developed in the software asynchronously, I guess. So a merge is when you bring your development branch back into the main branch, into the production software. So you create some feature, you commit it multiple times, make sure everything's perfect. Maybe you commit a unit test or something in the second one, some minor fix up after your review, and then you merge it back in. So that's the main gist of Git and GitHub. But let's actually show you how it all works. So for this, we're going to create a new repository, and we're just going to call it test for now. I'm going to go over what a gitignore is towards the end. This is an important piece as well. So we'll create a public repository, and then you'll see, and this is, by the way, we're using GitHub here. So this is the actual service that helps you work with Git. So I like to use GitHub Desktop a lot, even though there's two ways you can use GitHub. There's GitHub Desktop, and then you can use GitHub through the command line as well. A lot of developers actually prefer the command line. I think it's just because they're used to it, but personally, I like GitHub Desktop a lot. And here's what it looks like. So we can set up our new repository in GitHub Desktop. I'll open it, I'll clone it, and there we go. So now it's on here. If we check our folders, actually we can open, yeah. So we can check our folders, and I have a specific folder that's connected to my GitHub, and you'll see this folder shows up with our test repository. So there's nothing in here now because our repository is empty, but we can add a new file in here if we want. We're going to do that with the command prompt, and let me increase that font. Oh, I was deploying some stuff before. All right. So we're just going to add a file called test.txt. And that was not in the right repository. So change to, let's get into our repository of tests that we created. Let's add a file called test.txt. So now you see we have a file loaded into our branch, and you'll see it show up here. It says you have one changed file. We are currently on the master branch, so that's the main production one. Usually you don't really want to do that. You don't usually want to work on the master branch. I sometimes do it if it's just me, but let's go through the whole process. Actually, I think that'll explain it even better. And make sure we cover all these. So first, create your own branch for development. With GitHub Desktop, you should be able to create a branch like that. Huh. This should have a drop down. That's the first time I've seen that. All right, let's try some. I gotta reopen it. All right, let's go to a different branch then. Let's see. This one. So we have some Flutter code in this one, but that's fine. We can still show off what it can do. So we have our book club repository. Did the same way with what we did with the test, but some issue happened there. So we created a new branch. We'll branch it off of the master. If you remember here, you have the master branch, which is your production code, and you create a development branch off of the master. Apparently, you can't branch without a first commit. All right, well, that's what happened there. You need to create a first commit first. But anyways, we'll just work with this one now. So let's branch off the master. We'll create a branch called add login or something like that. That's a common thing you would do for an app at least. So you create a branch. You can publish it directly to GitHub already, because when you first create a branch using GitHub Desktop, it's not connected to GitHub just yet. And I could prove it to you because we won't see it here. You'll see all our branches. There's nothing here. So if we publish it, it'll currently be the same thing as our master branch, which is fine. But you see, add login branch is now added here. So now if we go into that specific repository, and we add a text file, you'll see that text file will show up. It's empty. If we want to add anything, we can, but I don't think we really need to do any of that. So the next stage is committing your changes. So I guess that's fine. We'll create a test.txt. This is your commit message, which you will see will show up in GitHub. And you can kind of describe what you are doing there. And you will say, we created an example text to show off GitHub. And then you do the actual commit. So now it is committed to your local Git branches, your local Git branch, but it's still not connected to GitHub. So GitHub kind of adds another extra step on top of Git to actually synchronize your code with the cloud-based service it provides. So now we can just, if you want to have it connected there, you can just keep it committed here and then push later, but we will just push the changes to our actual repository. Now, if we reload, we go to our add login, you should see a test.txt here. And you'll see add login had a recent push less than a minute ago. And you'll see now this branch is one commit ahead of the master branch. So that's telling you that the master branch, this current branch that we're on has an extra feature that the master branch doesn't. We'll get to the pull request and everything later, but so you can see our message of create test.txt shows up. Create an example test shown on GitHub. And we can actually take a look at the code even, I think you just click on it. Yeah, you can take a look at the code, but there's nothing here. So everything gets tracked, not just locally using Git, but also on the cloud-based server using GitHub as well. All right, so that's a simple commit and push. Let's see what else we had. So we had stage. I guess we could go through what that looks like from the command line as well. So let's say, we want to add another one. Touch test2 test from the command line.txt. There we go. So if you're using the command line, there's I don't think it's an extra step. I think the GitHub desktop just does it in the background. but there's this thing called a stage. So a stage is basically saving your code to that branch, but without committing those changes, like without committing them to the actual Git stuff. Because when you commit it, those changes are seen everywhere and everybody could know what's going on. If you're not comfortable with that part yet, you just stage it and it saves it, and you can commit it once you're comfortable with it. So then to stage these changes, you just do git add, and a period adds all of them, or you could do the specific file as well. But I mean, I usually just stage everything. And then once you have it staged, you can do git commit. Please enter the commit message. Oh, it's the part. So git commit, and then you do -m for the commit message, and then you'll add a message saying like command line. It's very similar to what we had here, except now this is in a command line. Command line commit of it. Now see, we had one file being changed, 0 insertions, 0 deletions. One thing to be careful of is, I know that's more for merge requests. We'll get to that later. So now the changes are committed to Git, and we're all good. But again, they're still not on the GitHub server, so you want to do that extra git push to get it to your repository in GitHub. And you might be wondering, how does all of this work? Like how does Git actually push things to the server with just some words? And it's because of this .git file that you have in here. We're not going to go over it, but basically this folder here lets you work with all the Git repository stuff and everything related to Git. You can check, yeah. So Book Club has the same thing, and it also has a .github too. What's next? So let's create a pull request then. So we committed changes to our branch. We have all these changes in here, all the things we want to actually bring back to the master branch, which is our production branch in most cases. We do that usually from the actual GitHub thing. So go here, we'll see this branch has 2 commits now ahead of master. The second commit was test command.txt. So you set up a pull request. Just click this pull request, and a pull request is basically bringing all the changes from yours to the master branch, and then people can actually take a look before you do that as well. So if you're doing a Flutter pull request, for example, you'd create a branch, write your code, then create a pull request to merge to the Flutter repository, and people from the Flutter team will go through, make sure your code is actually good, give you some feedback about it, and then once everything's cleared, you'll be able to merge. We'll just do something simple, just adding some test files. Even though the branch is called add login, that was just an example. So you can add reviewers and stuff. I think this would get automatically, someone would do this for you if you're doing it to the Flutter SDK. But then you create a pull request. You can set up some scripts that make sure all your tests pass and nothing wrong happens. And you'll see the files you have changed. Here we don't really have anything inside the files, but you can leave comments on specific lines. So let's do that too, just to make it even better. We'll add some text here saying this text for fun. And yeah, I like GitHub Desktop. So we'll push it there. And then you'll see there's a new push. It says update test.scmd. You look at the file changes. We have all the changes here. Add a comment saying this line sucks, or let's be more appropriate, this line is bad. Please remove it. And now the owner or whoever is doing it will take a look at this, be able to address it, and then you can close it once everything's figured out. You can go back to this. People again can leave comments saying stuff. You can be like, it's okay. And then this conversation can be resolved. So the problems are taken care of. Everything's good. You merge your pull request. Confirm the merge. And this step takes itself. It merges into the actual production branch. And then we can delete the branch if we want. If we don't, doesn't matter. But we can go back to our master. So this was the main branch, and you'll see our 2 files are added in there. And I think that's all with merging. There's one more thing, I guess. So sometimes when you merge, I think we need to refresh this. It's already merged. When you merge, things might not be perfectly merged. So let's say this situation happens where this one merged and this person took out a branch before your merge and worked on something similar. When he goes to merge back in, there might be conflicts because let's say they changed the same variable that you changed. What happens here is it'll tell you there's some conflicts. You'll have some steps that will guide you through how to resolve it. And then once it's resolved, then you'll be able to merge too. So it's not too bad still. You can do that with Git as well. So let's go through that. So we can do most of the steps we just did there with Git. So we can create a branch, name it feature, and then you can check all the branches. We have these specific branches. And we created a branch called feature, so we'll say git switch feature. Did I spell it wrong? Oh no, it says switch to branch. Also, if you want help on what else Git can do, because we'll be covering only maybe like half of it, not the whole thing. So do git -- help. You'll get a pop-up of all of this. So you can clone, create a new repository, add, move, restore, remove, all these things. So if you want to look more into the command line stuff, you can do the help, and then a simple Google would probably help you out a lot more than I can. So let's say we add another. Wait, so we can check which branch we're on. We're on the feature branch. So let's add a file saying test again. txt. Not the best with file names, but that's what you get sometimes. Let's add some text here. And actually, it doesn't matter for this. So we want to add these changes to our feature branch using a stage, like I said. So git add adds everything. Git commit, add a message saying whatever, another message. Got it added. Then we can switch to our master branch. So we're all good there. So things are committed to our feature branch. We're now in the master branch, and then you can do git merge feature. And it merges all those changes to your master branch. One thing to remember again, we didn't do any pushing there or pulling to GitHub. So everything we just did only happened with Git. Now, if you wanted these changes, so you can pretty much use Git without GitHub, like easily. Lots of people do. The main thing that happens because of that is you don't have anything saved to the service, right? But you have everything being version controlled and all that stuff on your actual device. So now since our master isn't lined up with GitHub, we can switch to master. Yeah, we can push our master branch to GitHub actually. So we'll do that through the code. We'll just do git push. Push some updates were rejected because the remote contains work that you do not have locally. Need to pull stuff first. Enter commit message. And then shift WQ. Escape. All right, you had to add some commit message there using Vim, which I'm also not great with. But then, so once we pulled in the changes that we had, because this test.txt and test.cmd was not on our local Git, we had to pull those changes in first, and it needed some commit message, which I went over pretty quick, and then we were able to pull, and now we can see the test again in here. All right, so I think that's all of the main things. Well, the first bigger ones. So the next stuff is to do with GitHub specifically. I want to go through all these tabs up. Well, a lot of the tabs up here. What you can do with it. So you can create issues. Issues are pretty much just tickets, things you can work on. So if we pretend we added login in the first feature that we just did, let's say we need to add sign up. Here you can tell whoever's going to be working on it what they actually want to sign up, what they actually want to do for this task. Create a form and add to Firebase on whatever service you're using. And assign it to some person. So in this case, I'll assign it to myself. You can add a label saying whether it's a bug, documentation update, enhancement. You can add your custom labels as well. And I want to actually bring up the Flutter as an example. So you'll see in Flutter, there's a bunch of issues. A bunch of issues like adopt a widget. And for these, you see the label is adopt a widget. You can add your own. No one assigned to it yet. And then you can also add, let's give a enhancement. You can add some projects. So we have, for this repository, I have like a core application. That's the project. And then there's milestones as well. And milestones, you could be like the initial release or something like that. Then you submit a new issue. And now it shows up in your issues. So if you remember our pull request, which is closed now. But let's pretend we made that issue beforehand, or it doesn't actually matter. But I think it was 29, right? So you can do hashtag 29, add setup, add sign up, and we can leave a comment here saying this will be added later or something. And there we go. So now whoever's in this pull request or in another issue, you can click on it. It'll take you to the issue. You can see how if you're working with a team, this would be really useful because you can reference issues between each other. You can reference projects and stuff like that. And you'll see in the add sign up, you'll say this was mentioned in the specific pull requests and things like that. So then we have our list of pull requests that we kind of went over. We have 2 closed ones. This one was before, but the one we closed ourselves. Then you have GitHub Actions, which you can create. If you remember this pull request, how there was, before we committed, there was those things spinning. They were checking some stuff. So that was using a default action that GitHub has set up. That it's not really an action, I guess. It's more of checking with the master branch. But you can set up other actions. For example, if you're using Flutter, you can run the tests and stuff. You can set up it to run tests before every merge. So you'll commit your changes to that pull request, and you'll see it'll run the test for you in the background, and you won't be able to merge unless the tests all pass. Then you have a projects tab where we have our core application. You can see all the tasks and stuff in here. You can move them around. It's not too difficult. Pretty easy to understand. You can add columns. I just have a very basic to do and progress and done. You can have a wiki where you can put more information for whoever's working on that repository. And then some security settings and stuff like that. Let's see if there's anything there. Flutter wiki. So if you want to learn more about how to contribute, I'm sure things like that are in here. You can see framework repo, engine repo, debugging the engine. There's a lot of good information in here that you can take a look at. And then they have projects like adding specific features. Since it actually requires a lot of work, you got rich text measurement. But if you remember, Flutter 1.2.2 just came out. So this is that project. You can see there's a bunch of things in here like, web view doesn't rotate, things like that. So GitHub makes it really easy to track all the changes and work together with a team. So now if you actually want to work on the Flutter SDK, let's say, what you need to do is you need to fork this Flutter project. A fork takes someone else's branch, in this case Flutter's branch, and creates your own out of it. So we have, you'll see it's forked from Flutter, and now it's Tadas Petra /Flutter. Now, if we really want to work on it, we can add a branch, and we have our Flutter branch. We won't actually merge the codes to Flutter, but I'll show you the process leading up to that. So you'll have options show up. Do you want to contribute to the parent project, or you want to contribute for your own purposes? If we're actually trying to contribute to the Flutter project, then you want to select the first one. But if you're trying to do it, if you just want to take what was there, let's say you want to implement the rest of Flutter by yourself, which would be a pretty difficult task. But if you're up for it, you don't want to merge it back, you just do this one. And you can work with it as much as you want. But we want to contribute to the main project. And we'll add some fake file again. Test.txt. So you'll see this. Commit to master. So since this is our personal one, we'll be able to push to their master branch directly, which I still think you shouldn't do even if it's just your personal one. You should still create branches for whatever feature you're working on. And now if we refresh, you'll see you're one commit ahead of Flutter. You can create a pull request. And in this pull request, you'll be merging your personal branch into the Flutter master branch. So that's pretty much how you work on other people's other code and how you can fork it over to your own stuff. There's no undo, it seems like. Well, hopefully it doesn't show them that I added any test to that txt file or anything. So that's pretty much most of Git. There's one more thing I wanted to go over, and it's gitignore. As you see, wonderful slide for that one thing. But if we check, most of my folders will have a gitignore. So not everything you work on should actually be merged to be committed to Git. For example, if you have any API keys, you have any database information and things like that, you don't really want to merge them to Git. You don't want other people to see. So you should add this gitignore file. If we open it up, you see in this case, I have a specific key for deploying Android apps that I don't want anybody else to have. So that's in here, and it doesn't get merged to the Git repository. You just keep it locally to yourself. And you can, with GitHub Desktop, there's a, let's show you one more thing. test2.txt. You can easily right click and ignore file. And you'll see this gets added. A couple other features in Desktop. You can just discard all the changes. You can stash changes as well, which kind of puts them away. So you can, but it doesn't commit them or anything. So whenever you come back to them, you can take back the stash, I guess. But we're just going to discard that. We don't want the txt. We don't want the GitHub ignore. And yeah, that's the basics of Git and GitHub. Like I said at the beginning, Git is the local versioning on your actual machine. And GitHub is just a service that lets you hold all that versioning in the cloud, pretty much. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening to this. Hopefully I helped you out, and hopefully you'll be able to work on the Flutter SDK now because of this. All right.
Yeah, that was a great session, Tadas, and I'm sure that people will be loving to use GitHub Desktop more because of its great features, and I personally use it as well. So yeah, thumbs up for it.
All right.
So
Thank
thank
you.
you for the session. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for the session, Tadas.
Thank you for having me, and
Yeah.
hope I helped some people out.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So yeah, that was Tadas, and from now we have another talk of contributing to Flutter, and I like to welcome Pascal. Pascal is a Google developer expert from for Flutter from Germany. He's working as a coach, giving Flutter workshop and build app as a freelancer. In his free time, he publishes open source libraries and talks at conferences and shoots the photos of his cat on the Instagram. So yeah, I like that. So
Yeah, thank you for the introduction.
yeah, welcome, Pascal. Yeah, your screen is visible, and over to you.
All right. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. And my name is Pascal. I'm from Germany, and I'm a Google developer expert for Flutter. And today I will show you the process of how you actually contribute to Flutter. I did myself a few contributions, and I just want to give you my experiences doing it so that you know what you are up to. If you have any questions while I give a talk, post them to the chat, and I try to answer them right away if I see them. If I don't, they are collected, and after my talk, I try to answer them as good as I can. Okay, let's start. First of all, I want to clarify what is actually a contribution to Flutter, because there's more than writing code. So at the top, we have asking questions on Stack Overflow. That's super important. If you ever run into any problem, ask on Stack Overflow for help. And there are many people who are volunteering to help. And you can be one of them. So try to answer the questions there. And even if you're not familiar with it, try to get into the topic and answer the question as good as you can. And this helps a lot. Spreading the word of Flutter and finding multiple solutions for problems which exist out there. The next thing is, if you ever run into an actual issue of the Flutter SDK, create an issue. Even if you don't have a reproducible example yet, create an issue and maybe more people will join your issue and have more information so that the issue can be resolved at some point. If you find issues which already exist and you run into the same thing, upvote the issue. The Flutter team is actually looking for upvotes and looks which issues are currently very popular or blocking many people, and those get a priority. So upvoting issue is actually a very cool contribution to Flutter itself. Next thing is, if you Google for a problem and you find multiple issues describing the same thing, but they are not yet linked together, just link them together, reference the other issue, and this way the upvotes of both issues are counted together and it gains some traction, hopefully. What you can also do is improve the issues by writing an example, which is at best a single file and which is a reproducible example of that issue. This is super helpful, and this makes it very, very easy for the Flutter team to fix the issue there. And the biggest part of contributing to Flutter is actually publish your own packages. And this is something I do most. I write my own packages and publish them on pub. And so my contributions are not directly in the Flutter repository, but to the Flutter ecosystem. And this is also very helpful. But my talk today, I want to show you ways you want to contribute and where you need a pull request. And we already got an introduction what a pull request actually is. And I want to give you now my example of creating such a pull request by showing you my journey of my very first pull request I created. So when you create a pull request, you can do multiple things. You can, for example, improve the documentation, and this is a very easy task to do. You can also add code samples, which is also part of the documentation. And it is very helpful for beginners. If they stumble upon a widget, they can see how to use it properly. Adding tests. So if you're not comfortable writing production code, but just write a test, that's very cool. And the Flutter team would love you to do this. And the last thing is writing new features or writing actual code for the Flutter SDK, which is very cool, but it takes some time to do this. And yeah, let's join my first contribution, which is actually contributing a feature or contributing code to the Flutter SDK. So let's take a look at the Flutter SDK itself, because the Flutter SDK is a bit different to other SDKs you might have been using in the past. The Flutter SDK is nothing else than a simple widget. A simple Git repository. There we have it. So Flutter is a Git repository, and it doesn't matter if you clone the repository directly or if you download the zip file from the website, because it also contains a Git repository inside. So you can use it as a normal Git repository. And this Git repository, unlike other SDKs, doesn't contain pre-compiled binaries where you can use those and they are fast, but it contains all source code, at least all Dart source code, and you can change it. That's a very cool thing, because if you compile your app, it also compiles the whole Flutter SDK, or at least the parts which you are using. And you can hot reload changes in the Flutter SDK. This means if you run into a bug in the Flutter SDK, you can hot fix it and hot reload, and the bug is fixed, at least on your local machine. And this is amazing. I've never worked with any other SDK where this is the case. So this is my personal recommendation. Treat the Flutter source code as if it would be part of your project. So if you see a stupid bug in the Flutter source code, don't think of it as holy code you cannot touch. Just touch it, change it. It's probably a tiny mistake, and the Flutter team is very happy to have it merged, and the other users as well. So let's have a look at my very first contribution to the Flutter SDK. I was using a draggable, which is a widget you can drag around the screen. And I wanted to change it to a long press draggable. So it only reacts after I do a long press, and then it's a draggable. The problem here is I was using the on-drag completed callback when I was using the draggable. And now the callback was missing when I changed it to a long press draggable. And it's just a tiny mistake. Someone was missing or has not added the parameter to the constructor here and forwarded it to the underlying draggable. So I could do this. It's just one line of code, add a new argument, and forward it to the existing widget. And I quickly fixed this and created a commit inside Flutter. So just my recommendation, we've already seen that using Flutter in the command line is not that great, especially if you're not familiar with Flutter. But there are other tools. We have already seen the GitHub tool, and my personal preference is Git fork, which is available for Mac and Windows, and I think also for Linux now. So just my recommendation, use a Git UI tool if you're not familiar with Git yet. It helps a lot, and you have nice buttons to click. And even I myself use a UI tool, so I don't have to remember all the arguments in the Git CLI. So I went to fork and opened my Flutter repository, so the Flutter SDK on my local machine. I created a new branch. I committed my code changes there, and that's it. I created my own commit, and the problem was solved. I now had my long press draggable with an uncompleted listener. So now I want to share this with the Flutter team. And how do I do this? Before I tell you that, I want to give you a tip. And this is if you are working on your project, you're most likely not on the master channel of Flutter, but you are using the stable channel or the beta channel. I don't know. The problem with those is they are far behind. Usually the Flutter master branch is like hundreds commits further because there are hundreds commits a week, and the beta and the stable branch are only updated monthly. So if you want to contribute to Flutter, first switch to the master branch. And it more often than not happened that I wanted to do a small contribution, fix a tiny bug, and then I realized, oh, I'm on the stable branch, but it was actually already fixed on the master branch. So first go to the master branch, see if it still exists there, and then commit your changes there. It also prevents merge conflicts because you are now on the same level as the remote repository. So always switch to master before you do a contribution. All right, so I created my local branch in my repository, and now I want to contribute it to the remote Flutter repository. The problem is I cannot push my code changes directly to the Flutter repository. I don't have the rights to do this. To do this, we've already seen this in the previous talk, create a fork of the Flutter repository. And once you created a fork, you can add your personal copy of the Flutter repository as a remote. So I here add my remote with git remote add passy, and now I can push my changes or my local branch to that remote repository. And once I did that, I can create a pull request from my remote repository, my personal remote repository of Flutter, to the actual Flutter repository. If you create a pull request, you should first of all give the branch a useful name. If you create a branch in GitHub on the website itself, the default name is bugfix1 or bugfix2. This is not very nice. Just give it a proper name, and then you can even change source code or documentation in the browser. Why not? At least for documentation, that should be fine. But give it a proper name. Also, in your pull request, add a useful description and screenshots if it's UI related. And very important, link it to an existing ticket. The Flutter team or the reviewers of that pull request need some context to understand why that change is required. So link it to an existing ticket. So this is the bug this pull request will fix. And then they know the context around it. And it's very easy because there is an existing template with all the descriptions, what you have to add. So just follow the template, the pull request template, and you're good. So I did it. I pushed my branch to my local, or I created locally my branch. I pushed it to my fork of Flutter. And now I could create a pull request to the actual Flutter repository. And there it is. In my pull request, it is opened. I added a short description. I mean, it's quite simple what I did. And this is the time where you can actually be proud. Yes, I did it. I did my first kind of contribution. Not yet merged, but it is visible to everyone. I did something on Flutter. So yeah, time to celebrate, but only for a short time, because then there comes the Googlebot. And the Googlebot reminds you that you have to sign the contributor license agreement. This is just a document, a Google form that you agree to all the license agreements and stuff like that. It's quickly done. It takes a second. And then you answer like, I fixed it. And the Googlebot will check again and mark the pull request as CLA approved. And it is fine to be merged. You have to do this. Otherwise, your pull request will never be merged. The next thing you have to do is to wait for the CI. Flutter has a very, very big test suite, which runs against every commit. And this needs to finish first before the team looks at it. And if you change source code, it is likely that also tests will fail. So first of all, before you actually create the pull request, run all the tests of the Flutter SDK locally. It is faster running them locally than on the CI. This whole CI job takes around 30 to 40 minutes, but running only the tests locally is like 1 minute, so it's fine. So if all of this is fine, the Flutter team will finally look at the code and check if all of this looks fine. And the number one complaint you will always get is, can you add a test? Or they ask you to add a test. And I was like, oh God. First of all, this was like the first or second month I was using Flutter, so I was quite new. And writing a test is actually not that easy. The next thing is I was like, yeah, it's just an argument. Why do I need a test? It's a simple argument. But the thing is, test for every property of a widget is very important. Because if someone else removes that property, you want a test to fail. And if you don't add a test for every property, everything will run green if someone changes the name of that property or deletes the property, which would be a breaking change for the whole SDK. And that's something the team doesn't want. So add a test for basically any property. And it's easier than I thought, because there are already tons of tests. Most of the time you can copy paste an existing test and only change a few lines of code. So for every class, there is a test class or a test file, and it contains already existing test code. Copy paste it, change a single line, and your property is tested. So it's not that hard, but it took me a few days. And then I added the test, and it was immediately merged afterwards. This is the best case scenario. So right now it takes sometimes days before a pull request gets merged, but it may also be like months before a pull request gets merged. If you contribute documentation, that's very easy. It gets usually immediately merged if you don't have any typos. But if you do some code changes, there's usually some back and forth with the team. And this not only happens within the pull request, but it is very recommended to join the official Flutter Discord server and discuss your pull request there with the team. All right, so this was my journey of my very first contribution to the Flutter SDK. And I think this is what happens to all your contributions. And one final word is, if you are interested in what's happening in the Flutter repository, there's this Flutter merge bot, and it posts all merged pull requests. And you can only learn from the best. So look at what got merged, check out the pull request, and just look what they did. How did they structure their description? How did they interact with the maintainers of the project? How did they add tests? Things like that. Just look at there and yeah, do the best what they did, and your contribution will work. Thank you very much so far. And now I'm ready for some questions. And I really hope that Abram has collected some.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, it was a great session, and I think that if someone is new and contributing, he might be knowing a lot through your session. So yeah, thank you for that. And I have some of the questions get collected. So yeah, they. The first question is, what is the one tip that you want to give to Flutter beginner who is interested in contributing?
Yeah, as I said in my first slide, start with the easy ones. Work on tickets, on issues, maybe ping people. If someone from the Flutter team looked at it like a month ago and there was no update, ping again and ask what's happening now. Things like that. That's very valuable. And after that, if you really want to write code, just start with a very small task, a few lines of code. The bigger it gets, the longer it takes. So keep it tiny and yeah, start with your first contribution. After you did the first, it's very easy to do the second.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah, so here's the second one. What's the simplest tag in the issues that a beginner can work on apart from easy fix issue?
Oh, I don't know that. I don't know, look for issues by labels. I usually work on issues where I actually have a problem in my production code and I solve those.
Yeah,
Don't know.
yeah. Okay. So here's the last one. That do you maintain multiple environments for Flutter SDK, and if so, how to switch between them?
Oh yeah, that's a good example. So so first of all, you can work on a single repository and just switch between the branches. That's fine, and it works for most of the things. I quickly try to reload my yes. So what I use is a library called Flutter Wrapper. I wrote it, and it's basically a bash script, and it's a bash script called Flutter-W, and you place it inside your project repository. And now you're using Flutter-W instead of the Flutter thing, and it copies the Flutter repository per project. And this way you can install multiple Flutter repositories on your machine and switch between them. So all my projects have their own Flutter repository, and this even allows me to work on my fork of Flutter. So if my changes are not yet merged into Flutter, I can still work on my own fork.
That's a great thing. I'm sure that people who will be contributing during this event, it will be very useful for them as well. So yeah, that's great. And also we have a question coming up from the audience as well. Can we make pull requests on the beta channel?
It really depends. So most, like 99% of all contributions are to the master channel, and only the Flutter team then goes ahead and eventually cherry picks to the beta channel if it's recommended. But like 99.5% of the time, it's in the master channel.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. So next question is, what was your latest big code change?
I usually try to keep them as small as possible. The biggest one I did was, or which had the biggest impact, was the scrolling behavior for iOS. I noticed that if you have a list and you scroll on iOS, it felt completely different than on a native device. And it was only a tiny bug, which I could solve. And now with the latest Flutter stable release, the scrolling should be so much better on iOS devices.
Yeah, that's good. So next one, if you have one, how do you become a GD?
Yeah, that's a hard thing. You have to do a lot of things. The easiest way to do is search for how to become a GDE and there's a Google website with all these steps you have to take.
Yeah.
It's a long list, so I don't want to repeat it here.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we don't have further questions. So yeah, that's it. And thank you, Pascal, for being here and helping everyone to the contributing journey.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And if you have any more questions, I'm available in the Discord channel,
Yeah.
and I will mentor you with What's Coming Now by Ryan.
Yeah, everyone's excited. So drum rolls, please. So yeah, it's that time again, and it's the time where everyone is waiting for. And I don't want to make further more excitement. And yeah, we have John from the Flutter team. Yay! Hello,
Yeah.
John.
Hi. Well, it's great to be here.
Yeah, we are great to have you here, and I'm sure the audience is very much anxious with what's the announcement. And I guess it's the stage is now, and go ahead with it.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So we are announcing Adopt a Widget. So we really wanted to think about ways to get the community involved to contribute to Flutter, which is what this event is all about. So we thought, how can we make it as easy as possible for people who are new to get started contributing and actually, landing a pull request into Flutter itself? I think that would be really cool. So what we did was we created issues for you to use to fix. We're going to focus on documentation. If you go to flutter.dev/adopt-a-widget, this page has hopefully all the information you need and references to where you need to go to learn how to land your first Flutter pull request. So we have a list of issues here. This is in step 1. If I click on this, it's going to show all the issues we've created for Adopt a Widget. And you'll be able to leave a comment on these, and we will assign it to the first person that doesn't already have an issue assigned to them. So for example, this, I believe we have one assigned already. Somebody has asked to be assigned. But yeah, you leave a comment and we'll assign it to you. And then you have some time to work on it, make the fix, and make a pull request. So this doc walks you through everything you need to do. Like I said, you leave a comment. Once you are assigned, if you never used Git before, we have some basic instructions for that. If you're contributing to docs, we have some extra features that you can add into the documentation. So we've added some ideas here. So one of the first ideas is to add code. You can see here, we've got a code snippet. I'm adding some special syntax, and I'm adding a snippet here. You can also add a sample, which has templates, and we've got some instructions for that. We've also got Dart pads. You can add Dart pads to the documentation, and references. So a lot of widgets, we want the API docs to be very much like a Wikipedia experience, right? Linking other places. So that's a really great idea if you're looking for ideas on how to fix things. So let's look at one of the issues to get a sense of what they look like. So for example, if I look at this Adopt a Widget issue for color filtered, it says this widget needs a code sample and more references. So we've kind of looked at this. If I click on this link, you can see it would be nice if color filtered, in addition to the video, had some references, a code sample. You could even apply a little more explanation here if you wanted to go an extra step here. So we've got a quick start here. I really recommend, if you're new to this, going through this quick start. We recommend a specific way of downloading and setting up the SDK. There's a special command to fetch all the packages. You will need to know this command. If you are on Windows, it's a little bit less clear what to do, so we've added a note for that. You could try downloading the Linux version of the SDK and using the Windows subsystem for Linux, but it's a little bit less supported than if you're on Linux or Mac OS. So once you do that, once you've made the change, you've decided what you're going to do, you can commit and push it up, make a pull request, and make sure you link to the issue that you are assigned to so that we can just make sure everything's lined up and help you land the change. So that's all I have. That's adopt a widget. I recommend go to this URL, flutter.dev/adopt a widget, and get started contributing. We'll try to assign you issues today.
So yeah, I'm really excited about this initiative, and it's really great to have you here, John. And I hope that during this event we get a lot of contributing and get comments on the issues as well.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, John, for having us here, and see you soon then.
All right. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye. Yeah. So yeah, next we have the Discord server here. So earlier we posted the Discord server link, and I hope you will be getting in the live chat now as well. So if you haven't joined the Discord server, do join the Discord server as well, as you might be seeing the link on the screen as well. So I'll make a quick glance through the server as well. As you join the server, you'll get a couple of channels. In the welcome channel, there are rules and regulations. So make sure you go through them, and after reading them thoroughly, make sure you react on the message. As soon as you react to the message, you get a complete access of the various channels. There is a help channel where if you have any questions regarding the event or something, you can just drop a message down here. Here is a Discord guide where you will get the listing about each channel and what it is being used. So if you have any question regarding any specific issue or any specific channel, Discord guide is here, and make sure you go through it once. Next, we have the community tabs for our Flutter Vadodara. So if you want to get connected, feel free to drop a message in the relevant channel as well. So this is the main section where you have the let's contribute to Flutter, and here, as you can see in the README, we have the welcome message, and also we'll be having a form link as well, where if you contribute to the Flutter, you just have to fill up the form, and yeah, so we have able to get a track that how many contributions are done during this event. So next we have the FAQ. There are a lot of questions we have already answered, and if you have one, make sure you go through them, and you have still feel that your question was not answered, feel free to drop a message in the help channel. Next up, we have various guides, and each guide channels have been assigned to a specific question or something. So for example, if you have any question related to Flutter website repository, you can just drop a message in the Flutter website help, and any of the mentors assigned will get back to you. Also, we request you not to tag or tag everyone in the channel. So yeah. Lastly, maintain the Discord rules and regulation, and enjoy the event. So yeah, that's it from my side, and I hope you have a great session, and yeah, that's it. So that's it from the Flutter Vadodara, and we can say that officially that the contribution has begun, and yeah, start contributing, and see you on the Discord server. Bye bye.